Welcome to another book talk with Tracy. The last few episodes I've been reading from my book, Blood Ties. It is the second book in the Three-Strand Cord series. And like the first book, it is written from three different points of view. The first point of view being Charisse, who was also one of the points of view in book one. And then we have her brother, Dirk Hillier. Well, the third person that the book is written from is Blue Shepherd. He does appear in the first book, and if you've read it, and I would highly recommend that you do read it first before moving on to this book, he feels himself to be in love with his childhood friend, Stella. Unfortunately, spoiler, she chooses his brother Zane over him, and of course he is heartbroken. So he consequently becomes a bit of a playboy, I guess. He's just, trying to ease the pain through drinking and, sleeping around and all those things, which, of course, he had been raised in as a Christian, and his family doesn't really like to see him doing that. So he still feels reeling from that, what he feels like heartbreak. However, he's beginning to think he may have feelings for somebody else, but of course he's not going to pick up on that because he just doesn't want to be hurt again. So this is the beginning of his section in the book, and we've already seen him in the book, but this is coming from his point of view, and he's at work. Blue flipped the page attached to the wooden clipboard and scanned the next items on the list of inventory. The farming supply store stocked everything from small garden supplies to horse tack to parts for farm implements. A rancher's one-stop shop, or so the paid advertising said. It was the first available job Blue had come across when he left the ranch, and the proprietor was more than willing to hire him with his first-hand knowledge and experience. Trouble was, the job was downright boring at times, like today. He longed to be outdoors instead of cooped up inside a warehouse checking stock. On days like this, it was hard to keep his mind on work. If he stopped to admit it, it wasn't just the lack of fresh air that had his mind wandering. It was the picture of a certain blonde beauty that kept popping into his brain. He frowned and tried to snap back to the present. He wanted nothing more to do with Charisse Hillier, and that was final. It's not that Blue didn't like her. It was the exact opposite. Their one night together had him running scared. He wasn't prepared for the depth of emotion he'd felt while she was in his arms, and therein lay the problem. He had betrayed Stella. Originally, Blue thought making love to other women would help ease the pain in his heart, but it hadn't. The relief was as temporary as the act itself. In fact, it might even have made things worse. He caught himself more than once imagining the girl in his arms on any particular night was Stella, but with Charisse it had been different. He thought it would just be another temporary balm for his wounded heart, but he'd been fully cognizant of just who he was making love to that night, and his thoughts that morning and afterwards had not been of Stella, but of Charisse. Taking hold of his reason, he argued that he really couldn't be blamed. Charisse was the typical bombshell, sexy and provocative and willing. He was human after all. Still, it was more than his physical response to her that had him scared. For some reason, it felt like he was betraying Stella. The fact that she could never be his now that she was married to his brother didn't lessen the feeling any. He'd been convinced, had vowed even, that she was the only woman he would ever truly love. He was an unreliable traitor. It was why he'd hightailed it out of there before the feeling could take any deeper hold. First of all, Charisse was Stella's friend, and second, Stella had warned him, via Charisse herself, that the latter was not the kind of woman you could build a lasting relationship with. He didn't need his heart completely trampled to pieces. It was best to cut and run. The only person who knew they'd slept together, as far as he could tell, was his father, and they'd had words. His father wasn't too happy about the whole premarital sex thing under his roof, not to mention the fact that Blue had chosen to just leave afterward. But Blue knew there was no other way. Forget decorum. It was a matter of self-preservation, plain and simple. I think I'll stop there. In this case, we see a lot of growth in terms of Blue and his faith journey. So the book is Christian. The whole series is written from a Christian worldview. And really that is the point. You know, besides the personal growth, there is a certain spiritual growth arc within all the characters as well. And certainly Blue's is one of the more dramatic. I would say this particular book in its entirety has a very strong redemptive message, a grace message, because all three characters come from a place of deep hurt and not following the Lord, and then they all come to salvation eventually. So it's one of the reasons I really love this particular book in the series, because it does have such a strong redemption message. So that is it for this time. I would encourage you to check out my website, tracykrause.com. No E in Tracy, 2 S's in Krause. And there you will find this entire series, as well in audiobook form, paperback, ebook, audiobook, and all of my many books and plays. And until next time, I would wish you adios and hope to see you again. Bye-bye.